The Rosetta Stone is the key to unlocking the secrets of ancient civilizations, a tangible link between past and present. Its deciphering cracked the code of hieroglyphics, revealing the mysteries of Egypt's pharaohs. As we embark on this journey, the whispers of the stone will echo through eternity, beckoning us to unravel the enigmas of a bygone era. In the scorching desert landscape of ancient Egypt, where the mighty Nile River carved its path through the sands of time, a civilization of unparalleled grandeur flourished. It was an era of mighty pharaohs, of monumental architecture, and of a written language that would remain shrouded in mystery for millennia to come. The year was 1960 BC, and Egypt was under the rule of Ptolemy V, a Greek dynasty that had inherited the throne from the great Alexander the Great. The Ptolemies, though foreign rulers, had adopted many of the Egyptian customs and traditions, including the use of hieroglyphics, a written language that was both beautiful and enigmatic. In this context, a decree was issued by Ptolemy V aimed at reconciling the interests of the Egyptian priesthood with those of the ruling Greek elite. This decree, carved onto a stone slab, would become one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in history, an artifact that would unlock the secrets of hieroglyphics and reveal the mysteries of ancient Egypt to the world. The stone, discovered centuries later, would be known as the Rosetta Stone, named after the Egyptian port city of Rosetta, where it was unearthed. The decree itself was a product of the complex politics of the time, a careful balancing act between the Egyptian priests, who wielded significant power and influence, and the Ptolemaic rulers, who sought to maintain control over their vast kingdom. The text, inscribed on the stone in 3 parallel columns, reflected this delicate balance, with the top column written in ancient Greek, the middle column in Demotic script, and the bottom column in hieroglyphics. This multilingual approach was not unusual for the time, as it allowed the decree to be understood by different segments of the population, from the Greek-speaking rulers to the Egyptian priests and common people. The stone itself becomes a window into the past, a tangible connection to a bygone era when mighty civilizations rose and fell, leaving behind only remnants of their grandeur. As we reconstruct the narrative of human civilization through the lens of the Rosetta Stone, we find ourselves in the midst of a complex web of historical events that would ultimately lead to its discovery. The stone, created in 1960 BC, was likely used as a public proclamation, displayed in a prominent location, such as a temple or a public square, where it could be seen and understood by the population. Over time, however, the stone's significance was lost, and it became just another relic of a bygone era, buried beneath the sands of time. The centuries that followed were marked by turmoil and upheaval, as empires rose and fell, leaving behind a trail of destruction and chaos. The Ptolemaic dynasty, which had ruled Egypt since the death of Alexander the Great, eventually gave way to the Roman Empire, which annexed Egypt in 30 BC. The Romans, in turn, were followed by the Byzantine Empire, and later the Arab conquest of Egypt in 641 AD. Each of these successive empires left its mark on the region, contributing to the rich cultural tapestry that would eventually give rise to the modern Egyptian state. Despite the many changes that took place over the centuries, the Rosetta Stone remained, a testament to the enduring power of language and culture. It is believed to have been moved from its original location, possibly during the Roman period, and was likely used as a building material in the construction of a fort or a wall. The stone's journey, however, was far from over. In 1799, a French army, led by Napoleon Bonaparte, invaded Egypt, seeking to expand French influence in the region and to gain access to the lucrative trade routes that connected Europe to Asia. The French occupation of Egypt would prove to be a pivotal moment in the history of the Rosetta Stone. The French army was accompanied by a team of scientists and scholars, known as the Commission des Sciences et des Arts et des Arts, who were tasked with documenting the natural history, culture, and architecture of the region. Among these scholars was a young officer named Jean-François Bouchard, who would play a crucial role in the stone's discovery. On July 15, 1799, Bouchard was overseeing the construction of a fort in the town of Rosetta, when one of his soldiers stumbled upon a large stone slab partially buried in the ground. As the soldier cleared away the dirt and debris, the stone's inscriptions became visible, and Bouchard, recognizing the significance of the discovery, immediately notified his superiors. As Bouchard's superiors were notified, the news of the discovery spread quickly among the French scholars and scientists accompanying the army. The Commission des Sciences et des Arts, led by the mathematician and astronomer Joseph Fourier, was particularly interested in the stone, recognizing its potential significance for understanding ancient Egyptian language and culture. Fourier, who would later become a prominent figure in the decipherment of the hieroglyphics, immediately dispatched a team to Rosetta to examine the stone and make detailed drawings of its inscriptions. The team, which included the artist and draftsman Michel Ingres Lancret, arrived in Rosetta on July 19, 1799, just 4 days after the stone's discovery. Lancret carefully made precise drawings of the stone's inscriptions, paying particular attention to the hieroglyphics, which were still not understood by European scholars at the time. These drawings would later prove invaluable for scholars studying the stone, as they provided a detailed record of the inscriptions before the stone was removed from its original location. Meanwhile, the French army's commander, General Jacques-François Menu, ordered that the stone be transported to Cairo, where it could be further studied and preserved. The stone was carefully extracted from the ground, and on August 1, 1799, it was shipped to Cairo, along with Lancret's detailed drawings of its inscriptions. In Cairo, the stone was placed in the custody of the Institute of Egypt, a scientific organization established by Napoleon to promote the study of ancient Egyptian culture and language. The Institute of Egypt, which included prominent scholars such as Fourier, Lancret, and the linguist Jean-Joseph Marcel, began a thorough examination of the stone, attempting to decipher its inscriptions and understand its significance. Although the French scholars made significant progress in studying the stone, they were ultimately unable to crack the code of the hieroglyphics, which would remain a mystery for several more years. As the French occupation of Egypt continued, the Rosetta Stone became a prized possession of the Institute of Egypt, with many scholars and scientists visiting Cairo to study it. However, the stone's fate was soon to take a dramatic turn as the British Army, led by General Ralph Abercrombie, launched a campaign to drive the French out of Egypt. In 1801, the British defeated the French at the Battle of Alexandria, and the Rosetta Stone, along with many other valuable artifacts, was seized by the British as a spoil of war. The British officer responsible for the seizure of the stone was Colonel Turner, who had been tasked with collecting and transporting valuable artifacts to Britain. On August 9, 1801, the Rosetta Stone was loaded onto a British ship along with other treasures and set sail for England, where it would eventually become one of the most prized possessions of the British Museum. The stone's journey from Egypt to England was not without incident, as the ship carrying it was delayed by bad weather and had to make several stops along the way. Finally, on February 14, 1802, the Rosetta Stone arrived in London, where it was greeted with great excitement and curiosity by scholars and the general public. The stone was taken to the British Museum, which had been established just a few years earlier, in 1753, and was placed on display for the public to see. The museum's curator, Sir Joseph Banks, was instrumental in facilitating the stone's acquisition and ensuring its safekeeping. As news of the Rosetta Stone's arrival in London spread, scholars from across Europe began to flock to the British Museum to study it. Among them was the brilliant linguist Thomas Young, who would later play a crucial role in deciphering the hieroglyphics on the stone. Young, who was also an expert in physics and mathematics, was fascinated by the stone's inscriptions and recognized their potential for unlocking the secrets of ancient Egyptian language and culture. Young's initial examination of the stone focused on the Demotic script, which he believed held the key to understanding the hieroglyphics. He spent many hours studying the stone, comparing the Demotic text with the Greek inscription and searching for clues that could help him decipher the meaning of the hieroglyphics. Although Young made significant progress in his studies, the decipherment of the hieroglyphics would prove to be a challenging and complex task, requiring the contributions of many scholars over several years. As the study of the Rosetta Stone continued, it became clear that its significance extended far beyond its value as a historical artifact. The stone had the potential to unlock the secrets of ancient Egyptian language and culture, providing a window into a civilization that had been lost for centuries. The decipherment of the hieroglyphics would require a combination of linguistic, historical, and cultural knowledge, as well as a deep understanding of the context in which the stone was created. As Thomas Young delved deeper into his study of the Rosetta Stone, he became increasingly fascinated by the potential of the Demotic script to unlock the secrets of the hieroglyphics. Young's work on the Rosetta Stone was not done in isolation. He was part of a vibrant community of scholars who were also working to crack the code of ancient Egyptian language and culture. One such scholar was Jean-François Champollion, a French linguist and historian who had been studying the hieroglyphics since his teenage years. Champollion was initially skeptical of Young's work on the Demotic script, believing that the key to deciphering the hieroglyphics lay in the study of Coptic, the latest stage of the ancient Egyptian language. However, as he began to study Young's work, he became increasingly convinced that the English scholar was onto something. In 1814, Champollion wrote to Young, proposing a collaboration on the decipherment of the hieroglyphics. The two scholars began to exchange letters, with Young sharing his findings on the Demotic script and Champollion providing insights into the Coptic language. Their collaboration marked the beginning of a new phase in the study of the Rosetta Stone, as scholars from across Europe began to work together to unlock its secrets. Meanwhile, the British Museum, where the Rosetta Stone was housed, became a hub of activity for Egyptologists and linguists. The museum's curator, Sir Joseph Banks, played an important role in facilitating the collaboration between Young and Champollion, providing them with access to the stone and other resources. As the study of the Rosetta Stone continued, it became clear that the decipherment of the hieroglyphics would require a multidisciplinary approach. Scholars from various fields, including linguistics, history, and archaeology, began to contribute their expertise to the project. In 1815, the Society of Antiquaries of London, a prestigious organization dedicated to the study of antiquities, established a committee to oversee the decipherment of the hieroglyphics. The committee, which included Young, Champollion, and other prominent scholars, met regularly to discuss their findings and coordinate their efforts. The work of the committee was not without its challenges. The hieroglyphics on the Rosetta Stone were complex and nuanced, and the scholars faced numerous obstacles in their attempts to decipher them. However, through perseverance and collaboration, they began to make progress. In 1816, Young published a paper in which he proposed a tentative decipherment of the Demotic script, using the Greek inscription as a reference point. Although his decipherment was not entirely accurate, it marked an important milestone in the study of the Rosetta Stone. Champollion, meanwhile, continued to work on the Coptic language, convinced that it held the key to unlocking the secrets of the hieroglyphics. In 1818, he published a grammar of the Coptic language, which provided a comprehensive overview of its syntax and vocabulary. The publication of Champollion's grammar marked a significant turning point in the study of ancient Egyptian language and culture, as it provided scholars with a powerful tool for deciphering the hieroglyphics. As the collaboration between Young and Champollion continued, they began to make breakthroughs in their understanding of the Rosetta Stone. In 1820, Champollion published a paper in which he proposed a new decipherment of the hieroglyphics using a combination of Coptic and Demotic script. Although his decipherment was still incomplete, it marked an important step forward in the study of the Rosetta Stone. In 1822, Champollion traveled to Italy, where he met with other scholars who were working on the decipherment of the hieroglyphics. He spent several months studying the collections of Egyptian antiquities in Turin and Rome, making notes and observations that would later prove crucial in his decipherment of the Rosetta Stone. Meanwhile, Young continued to work on the Demotic script, refining his earlier decipherment and providing Champollion with valuable insights and feedback. As Champollion delved deeper into his research, he became increasingly convinced that the key to deciphering the hieroglyphics lay in the study of Coptic, the latest stage of the ancient Egyptian language. He spent countless hours poring over Coptic texts, comparing them to the hieroglyphics on the Rosetta Stone, and searching for patterns and connections. In 1822, he made a breakthrough discovery when he realized that the hieroglyphics on the stone included a cartouche, an oval-shaped enclosure containing the name of the pharaoh Ptolemy V. By comparing the Coptic spelling of Ptolemy's name to the hieroglyphics within the cartouche, Champollion was able to decipher the phonetic values of several hieroglyphic symbols. This discovery sparked a flurry of activity, as Champollion worked tirelessly to apply his newfound knowledge to the rest of the hieroglyphics on the stone. He spent long hours in his study, surrounded by piles of notes and manuscripts, painstakingly transcribing and analyzing the hieroglyphics. His collaboration with Young continued, with the two scholars exchanging letters and sharing their findings. In one notable exchange, Young provided Champollion with a detailed analysis of the demotic script on the Rosetta Stone, which helped to clarify the phonetic values of several symbols. Meanwhile, the scholarly community was abuzz with excitement as news of Champollion's breakthrough spread. The French Académie des Inscriptions et Belles Lettres, a prestigious organization dedicated to the study of ancient languages and cultures, took notice of Champollion's work and invited him to present his findings. In 1822, Champollion delivered a seminal paper to the Académie, outlining his decipherment of the hieroglyphics and providing a detailed analysis of the Rosetta Stone. The paper was met with widespread acclaim, and Champollion's reputation as a leading scholar in the field of Egyptology was solidified. As Champollion's work gained recognition, he began to attract the attention of other scholars and collectors who were interested in Egyptian antiquities. One such collector was the Italian nobleman Domenico Salazaro, who had amassed a vast collection of Egyptian artifacts, including several important hieroglyphic inscriptions. In 1823, Champollion traveled to Italy to visit Salazaro's collection, where he spent several weeks studying the inscriptions and making notes. The visit proved to be highly productive, as Champollion was able to apply his knowledge of Coptic and Demotic script to the inscriptions, making several important discoveries. One of the most significant discoveries made by Champollion during his visit to Salazaro's collection was the identification of a previously unknown hieroglyphic symbol. The symbol, which appeared in several of the inscriptions, had puzzled scholars for years, but Champollion was able to decipher its meaning using his knowledge of Coptic and Demotic script. This discovery sparked a new wave of interest in Egyptian hieroglyphics, as scholars began to realize the significance of Champollion's work. The study of hieroglyphics was rapidly evolving into a major field of scholarly inquiry, with Champollion at the forefront of the movement. As Champollion's reputation grew, he began to attract the attention of other prominent scholars and institutions. In 1824, he was invited to join the French Académie des Inscriptions et Belles Lettres as a full member, a prestigious honor that recognized his contributions to the field of Egyptology. This appointment gave him access to a wider network of scholars and resources, which he leveraged to further his research on hieroglyphics. One of the most significant collaborations that emerged from Champollion's membership in the Académie was with the Italian scholar Antonio Salvolini. Salvolini had been studying Egyptian antiquities for many years and had amassed a large collection of hieroglyphic inscriptions. In 1824, he invited Champollion to visit him in Florence, where they spent several weeks poring over Salvolini's collection and discussing their findings. During his visit to Florence, Champollion made a major breakthrough in deciphering the hieroglyphics on the Rosetta Stone. By comparing the Coptic spelling of Ptolemy's name to the hieroglyphics within the cartouche, he had already identified several phonetic values. However, he still struggled to understand the meaning of many other symbols. Salvolini's collection provided him with a wealth of new material to study, and he was able to apply his knowledge of Coptic and Demotic script to make further discoveries. One of the most significant inscriptions that Champollion studied during his visit to Florence was the so-called Dendera zodiac. This intricate stone carving depicted various mythological scenes and symbols, including several hieroglyphic inscriptions. By analyzing these inscriptions, Champollion was able to identify several new phonetic values and gain a deeper understanding of the grammatical structure of ancient Egyptian. As news of Champollion's breakthrough spread, he began to receive invitations from other institutions and collectors to study their collections. In 1825, he traveled to London, where he spent several weeks studying the hieroglyphic inscriptions in the collection of the British Museum. During his visit, he met with several prominent scholars, including Thomas Young, who had also been working on deciphering the Rosetta Stone. Although Champollion and Young had been corresponding for several years, their meeting in London was the first time they had discussed their research in person. The two scholars spent several hours poring over the hieroglyphics on the Rosetta Stone, comparing notes and discussing their findings. While they disagreed on some points, Their conversation helped to clarify several key issues and paved the way for further collaboration. As Champollion continued his research, he began to develop a more comprehensive understanding of ancient Egyptian language and culture. He realized that hieroglyphics were not just a writing system, but a complex symbolic language that conveyed meaning through a combination of phonetic and logographic symbols. This insight allowed him to approach the decipherment of hieroglyphics in a more nuanced way, taking into account the cultural and historical context in which they were used. In 1826, Champollion published a major paper on his research titled Lettres AM, Dossier relative à l'alphabet des hieroglyphes phonétiques. This paper presented his latest findings on the decipherment of hieroglyphics and provided a detailed analysis of the Rosetta Stone. The paper was widely acclaimed by scholars and marked a major milestone in the development of Egyptology as a discipline. As Champollion's paper, Lettres AM, Dossier relative à l'alphabet des hieroglyphes phonétiques, circulated among scholars, it generated significant interest and debate. The French Académie des Inscriptions et Belles Lettres, where Champollion was a member, became a hub for discussions on Egyptology, with many prominent scholars attending meetings to share their findings and engage in lively debates. One such scholar was the Italian Egyptologist Ippolito Rossellini, who had been studying hieroglyphics since the early 1820s. In 1826, Rossellini traveled to Paris, where he met Champollion and engaged in intense discussions about their research. Their conversations focused on the nuances of hieroglyphic writing, including the use of phonetic and logographic symbols. Rossellini shared his own research on the hieroglyphics found in Egyptian tombs and temples, which provided valuable insights into the language and culture of ancient Egypt. Champollion, in turn, shared his latest findings on the Rosetta Stone, including his identification of the phonetic values of several hieroglyphic symbols. These discussions not only deepened their understanding of hieroglyphics, but also laid the foundation for a future collaboration between the two scholars. In 1827, Champollion and Rossellini began making plans for an expedition to Egypt, where they would conduct extensive research on the country's ancient monuments and inscriptions. The expedition was sponsored by the French government, which recognized the significance of Egyptology in understanding the history and culture of the ancient world. The team, which included several other scholars and artists, set out from France in July 1828 and arrived in Alexandria, Egypt, a few months later. Upon their arrival, Champollion and Rossellini began their research in earnest, visiting numerous sites throughout Egypt, including Thebes, Memphis, and Saqqara. They spent hours studying the hieroglyphics on temple walls, tombs, and other monuments, taking detailed notes and making drawings of the inscriptions. One of their most significant discoveries was made at the Temple of Abu Simbel, where they found a series of hieroglyphic inscriptions that provided valuable insights into the history of ancient Egypt. As they traveled throughout Egypt, Champollion and Rossellini also encountered other scholars and explorers who were conducting research in the region. One such individual was the British Colonel, Howard Vyse, who was excavating the Great Pyramid of Giza at the time. Vyse shared his findings with Champollion and Rossellini, including his discovery of several hieroglyphic inscriptions within the pyramid. These encounters not only facilitated the exchange of ideas, but also helped to foster a sense of community among scholars working in the field of Egyptology. The expedition continued for over a year, during which time Champollion and Rossellini amassed a vast amount of data on ancient Egyptian language, culture, and history. Their research laid the foundation for future generations of scholars, who would build upon their findings to create a more comprehensive understanding of ancient Egyptian civilization. As they prepared to leave Egypt in 1829, Champollion and Rossellini reflected on the significance of their discoveries, recognizing that their work had opened up new avenues of research and had helped to shed light on one of the most fascinating cultures of the ancient world. Upon their return to Europe, Champollion began working on a comprehensive grammar of the ancient Egyptian language, which would become a seminal work in the field of Egyptology. The grammar, titled Grammaire Égyptienne, was published in 1830 and provided a detailed analysis of the language's syntax, vocabulary, and phonetics. The work was widely acclaimed by scholars and helped to establish Champollion as one of the leading authorities on ancient Egyptian language and culture. As Champollion continued his research, he also became increasingly interested in the cultural and historical context of ancient Egypt. He recognized that hieroglyphics were not just a writing system, but a key to understanding the mythology, symbolism, and beliefs of the ancient Egyptians. This led him to study other aspects of ancient Egyptian culture, including their art, architecture, and funerary practices. His research in these areas would eventually lead to a deeper understanding of the role that hieroglyphics played in ancient Egyptian society and the ways in which they reflected the cultural values and traditions of the time. In 1831, Champollion was appointed as the curator of the Egyptian collection at the Louvre Museum in Paris. This position gave him access to a vast array of artifacts and inscriptions, which he used to further his research on ancient Egyptian language and culture. The Louvre's collection included several important pieces, such as the Sahel Island inscription, which provided valuable insights into the history of ancient Egypt during the Ptolemaic period. As curator, Champollion was responsible for cataloging and interpreting the artifacts in the collection, a task that required him to draw upon his knowledge of hieroglyphics, Egyptian history, and cultural practices. He also oversaw the acquisition of new artifacts, often traveling to Egypt and other parts of the Mediterranean to purchase or excavate items for the museum's collection. Through his work at the Louvre, Champollion helped to establish the museum as a center for Egyptological research and education, attracting scholars and enthusiasts from across Europe. Despite his many accomplishments, Champollion's health began to decline in the early 1830s. He suffered from a range of ailments, including heart disease and rheumatism, which made it difficult for him to continue his research at the same pace as before. Nevertheless, he remained committed to his work, recognizing that there was still much to be learned about ancient Egyptian language and culture. In his final years, Champollion focused on completing his magnum opus, a comprehensive dictionary of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. The dictionary, titled Dictionnaire Egyptien, was published posthumously in 1835 and remains one of the most important reference works in the field of Egyptology to this day. Through his tireless efforts, Champollion had helped to unlock the secrets of hieroglyphic writing, opening up a new world of understanding about ancient Egyptian language, culture, and history. Following Champollion's passing in 1832, his legacy continued to shape the field of Egyptology. His dictionary, Dictionnaire Égyptien, was completed by his brother, Jacques-Joseph Champollion, Fils Jacques, who ensured that Jean-François' life's work was published and made available to scholars. The dictionary became an indispensable tool for researchers, providing a comprehensive guide to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and facilitating further discoveries. In the years that followed, other scholars built upon Champollion's foundation, making significant contributions to the field. One such scholar was Carl Richard Lepsius, a German Egyptologist who traveled to Egypt in 1842 to conduct extensive research on the country's monuments and inscriptions. Lepsius's work, particularly his publication of the Denkmäler aus Ägypten on Ethiopian, helped to further decipher ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and expanded knowledge of the language and culture. As Egyptology continued to evolve, the Rosetta Stone remained a central artifact in the field. In 1834, the British Museum, where the stone was housed, began to attract increasing numbers of visitors interested in learning about ancient Egypt. The museum's curator, Samuel Birch, played a crucial role in promoting the study of Egyptology and making the Rosetta Stone more accessible to scholars and the general public. In 1851, the Great Exhibition in London featured a large collection of Egyptian artifacts, including a replica of the Rosetta Stone. This exhibition helped to spark widespread interest in ancient Egyptian culture, leading to increased demand for books, lectures, and other educational resources on the subject. The exhibition also marked a turning point in the development of Egyptology as a distinct academic discipline, with scholars like Birch and Lepsius helping to establish it as a respected field of study. As the 19th century drew to a close, the Rosetta Stone had become an iconic symbol of ancient Egyptian culture and a testament to the power of human ingenuity in deciphering the secrets of the past. In 1874, the British Museum created a new gallery dedicated to Egyptian antiquities with the Rosetta Stone as its centerpiece. The gallery's curator, Ernest Wallace Budge, oversaw the creation of detailed catalogs and guides to the collection, further facilitating research and public engagement with the artifact. In the early 20th century, the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 by Howard Carter sparked a new wave of interest in ancient Egyptology. The Rosetta Stone, now more than a century after its deciphering, remained a vital part of this renewed fascination. Scholars like Alan Gardner and Baptiste Congun continue to build upon Champollion's work, making significant contributions to the field and deepening our understanding of ancient Egyptian language and culture. The Rosetta Stone's influence extended beyond the academic community, with its image appearing in popular culture, from advertisements to film and literature. In 1927, the British Museum loaned the stone to the Egyptian government for a brief period, marking one of the first times it had left Britain since its arrival in 1802. This loan helped to strengthen diplomatic ties between the two nations and highlighted the growing recognition of Egypt's rich cultural heritage. In the decades that followed, the Rosetta Stone underwent several restorations and conservation efforts to preserve it for future generations. In 1999, the British Museum launched a major exhibition on the stone, featuring advanced digital technology to enhance visitor experience and provide new insights into its history and significance. The exhibition drew large crowds and helped to introduce the Rosetta Stone to a new audience, ensuring its continued relevance in the modern era. Today, the Rosetta Stone remains one of the most iconic and enduring symbols of ancient Egyptian culture, a testament to the power of human curiosity and ingenuity. Its legacy continues to inspire new generations of scholars, researchers, and enthusiasts, offering a window into a fascinating world that continues to captivate and intrigue us. The stone's story, from its creation in ancient Egypt to its modern-day status as a cultural treasure, serves as a reminder of the importance of preserving our cultural heritage and promoting cross-cultural understanding. The Rosetta Stone's enduring legacy serves as a testament to human ingenuity and the unrelenting pursuit of knowledge, bridging the gap between ancient civilizations and modern societies and forever changing the course of history. The stone's influence extends far beyond the realm of academia, inspiring generations to embrace the richness of cultural diversity and the importance of preserving our collective heritage. Thank you for joining me throughout this historical journey. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that, to understand the present, we must first understand the past.